He's introduced me.
Other than the fact that
you got to do it like Stan Lee style. Stan Lee, said with comic books, there's every comic book is somebody's first comic book, and that's why in the beginning he would always retell the story a little bit, like Peter Parker bitten by a fucking spider, blah blah blah.
Yes.
So you got to imagine there's some people. Probably not a high number, but maybe at least one person.
I don't know anyone
like,
listening to this show is going to be like, who
is
fat
this Kevin guy? Sounds awful like the titular that.
Is he related? Is he related to Bob Hawke in some way?
Yeah, but I'll take an intro. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, what intro could I actually possibly give other than the fact that, I mean, there would be no show here. There's a good chance I may have been a depressed and have ended my life already had I not picked up. Oh, dude, my life was falling apart.
And what about? So, what was it? What did you respond to? What
fucking
was
tough shit, man.
The book?
Yeah,
that's what did it for you.
But no, I'd been a fan for.
But the book itself, like, fucking had.
You gave me the permission to say, "Fuck it."
Nice.
Go out there and talk to your friends on the internet. I had read another book called "Crush It" by Gary Urbanchuk, I believe. Big internet guy, does wine, got a wine vlog.
Okay.
But he didn't give me the what to do part.
Right.
Here's how you do it, here's social media, here's this, here's that, but not the, what do I do with this?
Right.
So I'd been laid off. I was watching, it was 2009, watching my stuff disappear, filing for bankruptcy, all this kind of shit.
Right.
We had to move back from Virginia to New Jersey, back in with our folks.
Right.
And, I felt like...
You were feeling like bad.
Oh, my fucking life was like, it was over. It was bleak. And then, thankfully, I found your book, and I was like, I think I can do this. And I started, and that's the one area of you that I didn't get into was the podcast.
Right.
And I was kind of like... I think I had my head up my ass in my career.
No, it's a weird commitment, like, if you don't, if you know the movies, like not everyone who knows the movies takes the trip to the podcast by any stretch of the imagination. I still see on Twitter every day somebody going like, I don't know why it took me this long, but I just started listening to Spycast.
That's how I felt.
And that for me, it's like, I appreciate those people because it means we're not done.
Yeah.
It's not like everybody who ever wanted to hear your fucking podcast has heard it, and that's that. So anytime somebody's like, oh, I haven't been listening from the start, like that doesn't make me go, what the fuck is your problem? That makes me go, good. Like latecomers also keep mass going as well, so to speak. So that to me has been kind of a non-factor in terms of people going like, I didn't get into the podcast right away, or I never tried them right away. Like, if you don't know
but
podcasts,
meanwhile,
it
I
seems
would
like
watch
a weird science.
I watched every commentary of Clerks.
It's the same thing.
I loved your Roadhouse commentary.
Right.
I love it. I can't tell you how many times I fall asleep to that one.
I love that commentary.
Yes.
This Mosier going like, are you sure we're supposed to do this? I was like, they asked us
And you're just taking like fucking, what do you call it, Chuck, those other jokes.
The Chuck Norris jokes.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
That was a really good time.
Where were we going? I already felt that
So Tough Shit. So Tough Shit was...
Yes, that was the catalyst that said, I'm going to go podcast. And then I started a show called Bone Crushing Juggernaut with an old friend of 25 years.
How was that?
Oh, it was a blast.
Right.
Because now I'm creative.
And you're vital and you're talking.
Yeah. And I'm dragging my friend a little bit, too. And he's getting very annoyed at the fact that I talk about you an awful lot.
Really?
Yeah. Not that he doesn't like you, but
he's like, Jesus Christ.
When you have somebody.
Why don't you do a whole fucking podcast about him?
Yeah, like when someone's into Game of Thrones or something and is always talking, you're like, I'll never fucking watch Game of Thrones.
Yes, there have been people who have put me off shows by talking about how good they are.
Been there, done that,
right.
Yes. So that's where he was.
And so you guys started doing that show.
Yeah, and then around that time, Edication came on.
Right.
And I started tweeting like a motherfucker and jumped on. And you started shouting out BC Juggernaut, and my life became complete.
That was how sweet is that, man? I mean, it's flattering to me that that would make a difference. But like, it was fun. Like every week, you would see names and be like, "Oh, I fucking know those names from like not just like writing into the podcast, but like I've seen those names on Twitter." So you feel kind of like, "Oh shit, these people are famous. I know these people." So when you came up, it was like, "Oh, return customers," and especially for building a podcast like Edication was, it's not like it sprang from anything else. We'd done it as an episode of Smodcast and then boom, launched it on its own. So it was that podcast, like Andy,
so brilliant,
but he's a guy. He is absolutely brilliant, but he's not built to do like, all right, let's fucking sit down and record a podcast. Let's go out and do it live and shit. Like he didn't have to get dragged. He was eager, but like that wasn't in his wheelhouse, and he slowly built it into his wheelhouse. And now
he's so fucking amazing.
He's fantastic. Like he is the dude now in the podcast that I was always trying to like explain to people. I was like, this guy's one of the smartest people I know, and he's fucking hysterical.
I know.
And you could learn shit from him while having a good time. Like if I'd had this dude as a teacher in high school, I would have fucking been in education because like this dude would have inspired me. He's like fucking Robin Williams in that fucking Let's Stand on the Desk movie and shit.
You know when you told him, "Oh, hey, Andy, go get the cure for cancer," and he was like, "Oh, he'll come back with the cure for cancer."
Right.
All right. I don't know how comfortable he is with us telling the story. We did a show 2 shows back now with him.
Yeah. He was very happy. He brought it up like at the house he came over, and he might have talked about it on the show. I don't know if he left it in the recent episode, but he talked about doing the podcast. And he was like, it was at a time where he was feeling kind of particularly depressed in life.
Yeah.
We hadn't done the show in a couple weeks, and you know, he was kind of stuck between a few things. So it was a welcome respite, and you know, a nice place for him to go and just showcase how funny he is without having me jump in and make stoner jokes and stuff. So it was great. He loved it. He was like, I did this podcast. I had such a great time.
So when we approached him and put the idea together, it was Andy was like, essentially at the end of the day, we got a script from Andy.
Oh, we were great on. Yeah, he's a writer.
So it was like, hey, we want to do this thing for you so you don't have to do any work, so that you can relax and have a good time. All right, I'll do it. Here's a script. Here's the cure for cancer.
That sounds very much like Andy.
Yeah. I don't know how wonderful he is on hearing that, but okay.
He loves it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? I actually have a couple canned questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
And then they just went away.
We should. Everyone listening is probably like, "Why do I hear muttering in the background?" We're at the Secret Stash.
What a podcaster!
Yeah.
He's painting the room.
I got him.
Like a pro.
We just had Tusk Day here in Red Bank. We had 2 screenings of Tusk and did 2 Q&As over at the Bowtie Cinema. And then at night we had a little poker tourney here in the Secret Stash, which we haven't done in 5 years. And so, you know, it started off as like 30 people, and I think they're down to maybe 15 or something. So the murmuring that you hear in the background is a bunch of people playing poker at the other end of the store. We're up front at the register. If you've ever seen, you know, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash on Comic Book Men, we're at the front register, not that back register, right up.
If you see season 1 shots,
yes. By the time they got to season 2, Christian, of course, who's here, works on Comic Book Men. They were all smart enough to be like, let's build the secondary counter back there, because then we don't have to worry about lights that come through the window based on, you know, time of day. We get a lot of fucking hot light through here, sunlight and shit. Or, you know, they can keep the business going and go back there and shoot whole sections of the TV show without telling people like, don't come in, we're doing shit. They could leave the front register open. So it wound up working out for everybody. I love having the second counter back there. It's just, it looks really nice, but we had to give up some real estate for it. The comic books back issues used to live there. Now they live in the middle of the floor, which is fine too.
I like
the place
original
looks
window.
Really, really nice. You like which one?
The original window.
Oh, that was really nice.
The first time I walked in, I didn't notice it, and Ernie. Then we saw him a little later. He's like, "Did you see the window?" I'm like, "The window? What are you talking about?"
That has been in storage since we left the location on Monmouth Street, and that was what, 99? It was around the time of Dogma that we were, and I was living next door in the apartment, and Jen was pregnant. And I remember coming down here, and this used to be an ice cream parlor. It was called Bobby Socks, and it closed. And
Sexy.
Jack, who owns Jack's record store across the street, and the building, he owns a lot of real estate in Red Bank. He owned the place, and I was like, "Hey man, I got this comic book store on Monmouth Street. I'm thinking about moving it up here to Broad." And he was like, "Right on, man. Yeah, you could totally use this
They're
place.
just mints.
No
Sorry.
worries." I was getting ready to go halvesies on a lewd with you. I was like, "Right on." So he rented the place to us, and then Ratface, who's done a lot of our production design.
One went in my mouth. I'm so embarrassed.
You got a few of them. He did the interior of the store, redid everything, and whatnot. So it's been a nice home base for a while. But the original store on Monmouth, Scott Mosier had painted that window. So when we closed,
that's Mosier's work. That's a
Mosier
original. We got a question about Mosier.
That's why I didn't throw it out. I was like, okay, we're leaving the store to open this store. I said, let's pull the glass from the other store and put it in storage. And so it'd been in storage for like a decade, like 10 years. And then Ernie was like, hey, there's that old window. What if I put it up in the back? And I was like, oh, my God, that'd be amazing. So it's nice. We got to put it back up, and it's part of the store's heritage. And the fact that I'm a Mosier fan, so the fact that he painted it is kind of cool.
We're all kind of Mosier fans.
Yeah, we all.
She's a Mosier fan. I think he's
phenomenal.
brilliant. He's fucking brilliant.
He is so brilliant.
All right, let me get to some real questions.
Okay.
Okay, kind of think of this as your expert crowd, or we don't need the canned sort of
Done, so I can be very candid.
Yes, you can say whatever.
These are cats that have listened to every other podcast, so don't repeat that stuff.
You got it. Exactly. Don't treat it like a regular appearance.
Totally. I don't have to tell them the story of so we were listening to this podcast, and I realized I wanted to make a movie about a guy who turns another guy into a walrus. They've heard the story.
Yes. Okay, I got to ask Brian this one at a Comic-Con, but now I get to ask you. Was your performance in Vulgar based on Ben Affleck?
No. Who was my performance in Vulgar? I'm trying to think.
It seemed very Affleckian.
I mean, if anything, if it's Affleck influenced, that's because
like
he was always one of my favorite actors. And so whenever he, acting is a job of choices. So whenever he makes his choices, particularly in early in our careers, I loved it. Like I don't know how else to say it, but I thought he.
Whenever you go big in that, you kind of feel Affleck. Yeah,
I steal from him because he's of
I'm
all
glad
the
I'm not
performers.
crazy.
You're not crazy. Of all the performers I've ever seen or been influenced by in my life, his patois and his delivery was closest to what I could do. And so anytime I tend to go a bit theatrical, I tend to steal a bit from his playbook, which, to be fair, is kind of my playbook as well, since, I did direct some of those performances. But I love Ben's style. It's different now, and we all grow up and shit, but, man, if I had to pick one person to spend the rest of my life with, it might be Ben Affleck circa 1996 to 1999. He was just
until he got in trouble.
So fucking perfect, the dude. He just really, I don't know, he was so original and knew exactly who he was. I had already made a few flicks like Clerks and shit, and Mallrats, but still, I was been trying to figure out who I am and piece that together on a daily basis. He knew exactly who the fuck he was, and he was his own biggest fan, which I used to find oddly charming. And then I was like, that's the way you should be in life. You should be your own biggest fucking fan. He would talk about the peeps, tons of my peeps, and they had no peeps. He had no audience yet, but he saw them coming. He hoped that they would come. So yeah, I do. I steal from Ben, and that performance probably was Ben influenced, but it's not me playing Ben.
Yeah.
It's just when I act, I try to. I act like Ben. I try. I'm he's good. I could try that.
All right. Well, I have a nice tie-in because you kind of went there. And, of course, now my notes are flying off me.
No worries.
Okay. So when did we come out of there? We came out of shit. Now I'm losing myself.
No worries. That's what the edit's for.
I know. Thank God. Ooh, I'm going to go a different place.
Go ahead.
Does this mean anything to you?
Go ahead, fire.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Telling the truth is a bitter herb.
Yeah, man, that's fucking Ishtar.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it.
One of my favorite movies and one of the movies that Scott and I bonded over.
Oh, wow.
And that right away, I was like, I like this guy because he liked that movie. And not everyone likes that movie.
All right, I have a very
Pete
King moment.
Okay.
Because I had a very good friend named Rick Howe who passed at 27. Had too much fun. We used to say that both of us would make 30. I made 30, but he would have been a magnificent podcaster.
Right.
And we love that movie. Oh. So to find out that you love that movie, and you never really talk about it, and I was
if you listen to
he's a
Smodcast,
fan.
You'll hear it every once in a while. We drop a reference. And it's usually to the lyrics in one of the songs and stuff. Yeah, but the whole opening of that movie is they're trying to write lyrics is so fucking awesome. But one of my favorite. You
could just take out the whole Ishtar part, except for where he's selling the weapons.
Or when he's talking to the fucking buzzards. That to me is one of the vultures when he's are you crazy? I'm still moving.
Yeah,
it's still one of my favorite moments in comedy ever. It's really fucking funny. Yeah, I love that movie.
And it goes down as a flop.
Yeah,
the biggest flop.
Huge. They don't talk about it anymore. But when I was a kid, that was how fucking
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Brings the house down.
Tell him that you can be dangerous
business.
Honest and popular don't go hand in hand.
Yes. If you admit that you can play the accordion. Oh, my
They'll
fucking
never
God.
hire you in a rock and roll
I'm
band.
just singing this with Kevin Smith.
But we
Fucking
can
Ishtar.
sing our hearts out.
All night.
Oh, nice. Very nice. And if we're
Lucky and the
no
neighbors
can
complain. Something like that.
Oh, I love that.
I
movie.
love when he's fucking out on the ledge.
Yes.
And his mom is like, the sun will come out tomorrow.
Yeah, bet your bottom dollar. That was
Brilliant
awesome.
movie. Okay, well, I'm so thrilled. You made my day. You made my millennia.
Right on.
All right. Okay. All right. Last time we spoke, you were 5 days sugar-free. It was back in November at the time. Did you think you would make it, and how do you feel now?
I did. I mean, I made it for a long time without eating any sugar. But to be fair, I mean, I drank milk, and so milk's got natural sugar in it. So I didn't eat processed or added. But it wasn't like I was completely cold turkey. For the first 2 weeks I was, because I didn't even drink milk then. But then I slowly brought fucking milk back into my diet because it's something that Andy said on Edication about it being very fulfilling. And I found that very true. He's like, yeah, you drink a glass of milk, it's oddly satisfying. That's why it's existed as long as it has.
It's the lactate.
That's what he said. And so, he's a smart guy. So I was like, fuck, I'll listen to
whatever
him.
it is.
But I started...
Lactate is what happens with women.
Yes. But or the cow, I guess, has to lactate to give its milk. So basically, I added some milk into it. But other than that, it was the first 2 weeks were hard. After that, it was easy. I've since over Christmas, I've had chocolate and shit. So that was nice. But I haven't dove back in fucking sugar. Now I treat it the way it's supposed to be treated, which is all in moderation and as a treat or something like that. But it was surprisingly fucking easy to do. It's like anything else, man. 2 weeks, you separate yourself from anything. You can piece together a life without that thing.
Yeah, it's true. I can speak for experience. And there's listeners out there jumping on the bandwagon, too. So
doing as well. I mean, it's, in terms of the career, I'm always like, you guys can do this. You guys can do this. In terms of fucking losing a few pounds, it's real. Somebody taught me how to do it, so it was real easy to pass on to the audience. Be like, hey, man, if you want to do this as well, it just requires giving up some fucking sugar. But it's possible, and you can see results instantly. And so it's nice to pass that along. But, at the same time, I'd be like, why am I listening to fucking weight loss advice from the like of fucking Kevin Smith,
But when it works, it works. You can't fucking argue with fucking
can't argue
success.
with results.
Yeah. I remember where I was going before, but then I just forgot again. Shoot. God, I'm falling. Where the heck was it? It's in here somewhere.
No worries. That's what the edit's for.
I know. Ooh, here's a real direct question, and someone asked me to ask you: are you involved in the development of adapting the comic series Preacher to TV?
Not at all. That's Seth and Evan, the boys who just did the interview and whatnot.
Okay.
They are doing that. Years ago, me and Scott were listed as producers on a version that Rachel Talalay, the woman who directed Tank Girl, was going to be directing a version of a Preacher movie. And we were only involved because Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, the creators of the book, the artist and the writer, they were like, look, you're in the business. And this was at a time where nobody was making comic book movies. If you can believe that. There was a time where people didn't make comic book movies. So they were like, can you be a producer on it? And I was like, dude, I can't get things made. I have no juice. But you can put our names on it for as much as it helps. If fucking one iota, hurts it, us being involved hurts this one iota, don't worry, just drop us off of it. But we love the comic, and we'll do anything we can to get it made. Garth had written the script, and it was really good. Encapsulated, I think, the first 10 or 12 issues. But it was a tough proposition to get done, particularly after Dogma. People were like, well, we don't want to fucking go through that. Like, they saw what we went through on Dogma with the fucking religious right and shit. And so it was just a different time. Nobody was lining up to make that. But it was something that, even when it was shaping up as a movie, I was like, this feels like a better TV show. It's laid out, episodic. It'd be great if it was on HBO. There was that at that point, that was the only place you could do something like Preacher. So it was before AMC busted out The Walking Dead and kind of turned their network into what it is. And in many ways, that would be the best network for it. Man, HBO, they get to curse, and they'll get to curse a bit on AMC as well, I'm sure. But it's if they've proven anything at AMC, they could take a fucking comic book that's got a very small but ardent audience and turn it into an ongoing series. So those guys, I think, will do a great job. They're big fans of the material and whatnot. And right now, there's nothing hotter than them, for heaven's sake. So
sure.
I'm sure they're going to crush it. I'm sure that gets made. That goes to series instantly.